All right, so that's Iken Oznir, international master from Turkey, representing UTRGV. Board 4 for his team. He played board 3 in the Collegiate Chess League as well. And they ended up in 3rd place this season. And yeah, I think we can have some time with Dr. Alexi Root, who is a teacher here at UT Dallas and also my coworker at chess.com, as well as an organizer for the Chessable Research Awards. Dr. Alexi?
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be on your broadcast.
We're excited to have you. I think a lot of people already know who you are. I don't know if everyone really appreciates just how much work and effort that you're putting in behind the scenes, especially here at UT Dallas. Tell us how much prep has gone into hosting the event this year.
Well, of course, shout out to Grandmaster Julio Zadora, who is the organizer of the President's Cup. My contribution has been, along with Graham Cree of Austin, Texas, to develop a website with the history of the President's Cup. Because before we developed this website, you had to search through old Chess Life magazines to try to find out what the results were every year. And now on one web page, you can click on the year, get the round by round pairings, the results. So that's a free public website that's linked to from the organizer's page. And I'm also writing a book about the President's Cup.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And I think it's really important that we keep accurate documentation of these events. Before you know it, something like the President's Cup, which hasn't always existed, is now a historic annual event. And something that I myself am doing with the Collegiate Chess League is trying to keep documentation of past results, past teams, players, matches, games. And it only started in 2020, but we've already now are on season 10 because we've been doing a couple of seasons every school year. So maybe I could follow suit and learn from you and maybe create a website where we're tracking all of that information. Right now it's just on like a Google sheet that I have.
I would advise doing that because my research about the President's Cup, individual organizers, because it has moved around the country, often they would have a web page or website about their year, or maybe they did 2 years in a row. Well, if you go back to those web pages, a lot of times the download buttons no longer work, or the web page isn't supported, or they kind of pasted over the second year's results over the first year's. So it's not permanent. So if there's a way you can create a separate, easy guide to your Collegiate Chess League, I would recommend it. It'll help future historians because it's actually been challenging. And I don't want to take time away from Grandmaster Liam Lee, who's the wonderful coach of Webster. He's, as I'm working on my book on the President's Cup, I rely on players like Grandmaster Liam Lee, who used to be a player for Webster and now is a coach. So he can provide that kind of historical perspective on the tournament. So I'm very grateful to him and to Webster for their support of the book. Actually, I've had help from every one of the universities that's represented here to make the book better. But before I leave, I just want to give a shout out to the Chessable Research Awards, if that's okay.
Of course.
Okay, so if you haven't applied yet and you're an undergraduate student, graduate student, or faculty member, Chessable, which is part of chess.com, is giving money for chess-themed research. $500 to undergraduate students, $1,000 to graduate students, and $500 to their faculty research sponsors. The purpose is to have more peer-reviewed research about chess, because that's going to raise the profile of chess everywhere, not just in academia, but in public schools, among administrators, and so forth. So I encourage you to check out the Chessable Research Awards. You can contact me or Google it.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Alexi Root. We can use ! Chessable in the Collegiate Chess League chat if you want to learn more about that. And we also have a video that goes into a little bit more depth if we'd like to play that.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to add to your resume and earn up to $1,000 too? Chessable Research Awards are for you. Head to chessable.com/research_awards and apply today. The application is 10 questions long, and some questions are easy, like what is your name and what is your email address? Application questions also ask you to tell Chessable about a chess-themed research project that you want to begin or about chess-themed research you're already doing. Past winners' topics include detecting chess cheaters and scuba diving in chess. Applications are due by May 15th, and winners will be announced on June 15th. If you win, you will work with a faculty member on your research, then submit a blog post about what you accomplished. So what are you waiting for? Start your application today. All right, so that was the Chessable Research Awards. Again, exclamation point Chessable in the chat to learn more. But I'm back with welcoming Grandmaster Liam Lee, head coach of Webster.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here, to join you.
Yes, thanks for joining us. So obviously Webster is in a very important match right now, tied for first with SLU, playing against SLU, your cross-city rivals. What was the game plan? Obviously, if you win them, you'll win the event. So maybe you can walk us through maybe boards 1 through 4 and tell us your ideas.
Sure. So first of all, I have to say, if we win this match, it's still not clear if we're going to win the event because it's by game points and not match points. And before this round, SLU and Webster are tied with 4.5 points. UTRGV is right behind us with 4 points. So if they have a very good score against UTD, they may catch up or even pass one of us if we don't win with a big score, for example. So theoretically, anything can happen. Basically, three teams can still win this tournament. Even UTD, on paper, they still have a very good chance if they can score really, really big. And Webster and SLU draws, for example, then they may also win this tournament. So I think it's very exciting for the fans. I'm not sure if this is the first time that 4 teams still have a theoretical chance to win before the last round, but it's definitely one of the closest President's Cup that I have ever seen. So it will all come down to the wire, to the nerve, and how the players handle the critical moments. So yeah, I think let's take a look at the games.
Go back. Yeah, click on that.
Yeah. Okay, so on the first ball, we have Grandmaster Robbie Kelevishvili against Grandmaster Harsha Hakoti. This is a very interesting middle game. So you know, Harsha is our Webster ball 1. He had a tough day yesterday, but we have full confidence in him, and we prepared this slide quite carefully before the tournament and also yesterday. So I think we got what we wanted out of the opening, which is a very fighting game. And the current position is around equal, but I could take black here. It looks a little bit easier because black has clear plans. You can play a5, a4, attacking on the queen side. You can put the knight on f6 or g5. The e5 pawn is well protected. It's very hard for white to get f4 in, and in the end game, d5 may also become weak. So it's harder for white to come up with a plan. Ideally, white wants to put the knight on e4. And how do you achieve that? You have to either put the knight on d2 or f2. f2 is too far to get there. If you go to d3, probably the bishop can take the knight, and black would be happy. So d2 is the most realistic square to get to e4. So for that, you have to move the queen somewhere, probably e3, then knight d2, or queen f2 and knight d2. But even if you get there, I think black simply play knight f6 or knight g5. And if you go to e4, black takes. So the king side is closed. It's not so easy for white to attack there. On the queen side, I like our chances here. So it's around equal, but I think slightly easier to play for black.
And that's a really big deal because Robbie, the top boarding captain for St. Louis University, has been playing so well. He has a perfect 2-0 score, the only player in this event with a perfect 2 for 2. So that's really good that Harsha, with the black pieces especially, has such a playable position here.
Yeah, I agree. Robbie is in very good form, and it is critical that we do well in this ball.
All right, so we want to take a look at the second game.
Yeah. So second game, let's go back a few moves. So, okay, so after queen b3, queen d7 is logical. You have to defend f7. Castle e4, also logical. Knight back. So this Ragozin variation is not very popular. If we go back a little bit, I think this move a5 is already quite rare. Usually people play like dc, bishop f8, a6, this kind of move. A5, I'm not so sure what is the idea of that move because you don't get the b4 square. Normally you want the pawn on a6, so you can take dc and then b5 at some point for black. But here b5 is almost never playable for black, so the only other plan, logical plan for black here is to take dc and e5, which is what he did. Now f7 is a little bit weak, so ideally black wants to defend f7 with bishop e6, but here it doesn't work because of bishop takes and d5, or d5 right away. So here after castle, because the bishop on c8 is a little bit passive or not ideally placed, he doesn't want to open the position, so he played e4, knight comes back to e1. Now white wants f3 to open up the king side, so black has to act quickly, which I think he did okay with this move a4, but it's a pawn sack, I believe. So white took the pawn. When a5, so you force white to part away with one of the bishops. And now, of course, this rook can swing over to g5 or h5, trying to attack h2. So now the critical question is, what should black do with this rook? You can go to g5, h5, you can go bishop d6, trying to attack on the king side. White most likely will play f4 sooner or later, probably right in the next move. Especially if you go rook g5, f4 could be quite strong. So I don't think rook g5 is a good move. So either rook h5 or bishop d6. So the real question here is if black has enough compensation for the pawn. My feeling is that white should be better here. I haven't checked the engine, I don't know, but I have a feeling that white needs to play a few accurate moves, and after that, white should be clearly better and probably good winning chances.
Awesome. So it's looking good so far for the top two boards. For Webster, let's take a look at board 3.
Okay, so board 3. Oh wow, this is getting interesting, real. I don't think we see this very often, that the king ends up on d7 in such an early stage of the game.
Yeah.
So for sure, both players came up with fighting spirit in this game, and the fight we got. This line is, I'm not so familiar with this move, but I think somehow white should be a little bit better here, but it's not so clear what to do. And after the knight got to c4, like what we saw, if white doesn't have a direct attack on the black king, black should be doing very well here. And I think I like black position again, because the white king may be in some trouble. White doesn't have a direct attack, and all kinds of endgame probably favors black slightly. So now, of course, black has to decide what to do. Does he want to trade the queens with, let's say, queen b6, forcing a queen trade? Which I think the endgame is not bad for black. It's playable, but maybe black has other options too. Maybe queen b4 can be tried. Other move, bishop e7, probably not ideal. But I think queen b4 is a very attractive move for me right now, because after queen b4 you have to defend b2, and there are only two ways to defend that, knight b1 or knight e2. It's hard to say, but I feel that black should be clearly better here. Let's say you go knight e2, probably at least I can just go back queen c5, trade the queens, and the knight is slightly worse placed on e2, and I have some knight e3 threats. But I think black may even have something better. So he played b5. He wanted to attack right away with b4, and the computer seems to like it.
That's very exciting.
Yeah, I think this should be a decisive game. I don't know who it would favor, but it won't be a draw in this game. That's my prediction here.
Yeah, Nicolosi, I think he lost his last round as well, right? So this may be a player that's struggling. And Yasser Quesada Perez, obviously a very strong player. Here he's got the black pieces, but looks like they're definitely pushing for the win here, which is really an important result for your team.
Yeah, I think Yasser made a good choice about the opening. Of course, he has multiple openings he can play. But yesterday I told my guys that we need to be ready for a big fight because they will try to beat us, we try to beat them, and we need a good score to win the championship. So we have to focus on each ball, and we have to try our best, be ready for a big fight. And he's not afraid to fight. You can see that he chose the Sicilian, and this could have gone either way, but I think he's in the driver's seat right now.
So you're talking about giving advice to your players. Obviously, before you were the coach at Webster, you also used to compete at Webster. Can you talk to us a little bit about that experience as a player and maybe how many President Cups you've played in?
Yeah, so I was a student at Webster for 4 years, from 2013 to 2017. I played for Pan Ams and for President's Cup. I won one of them. So it's very nice. I won for President's Cup as a player, and I've won one President's Cup as a coach already in 2023 when we hosted that at Webster University, and hopefully this will be my second time as a coach. But so far, I mean, in the last 12 years, Webster University has been the top of the collegiate chess teams, and we hope to maintain that position.
So when you were a student and a player, your head coach was Susan Polgar?
Yes.
And at what point did you realize or decide that you wanted to be a coach yourself?
I guess after I graduated from Webster, I became I wanted to focus on my professional playing career, but on the side, I also did some coaching, some players. And when Susan retired in 2021, I was offered this job. That was very unexpected for me because I wasn't planning on doing it at all. I mean, I didn't think about working at Webster, but the opportunity came and I couldn't say no. I thought this is my best chance to keep the tradition of spice, of winning at Webster and passing my knowledge, sharing my advice to my students. So I accepted that offer and have been a coach since then.
And how much of Susan's coaching style has influenced you as a coach?
A lot, I think. So we still keep many traditions from that time. For example, right now in our training sessions, we have individual trainings, one-on-one, when I meet with each student weekly to work with them, give them specific advice on how to improve their weaknesses, improve their chess in general. And we also have team training sessions where we have a big team gather together and we do some work together. So we work very seriously. The discipline, the training, I learned that from Susan. You have to put in the work, no matter how strong your players are. Some of the players, when they came to Webster, they're already very highly rated. But if we don't put in the work, we're not going to succeed. So we have to make sure that we work harder than everyone, we train harder, and we take every game, every tournament seriously.
That's definitely very inspiring. I think a lot of people really appreciate that sort of drive for excellency. And something else that Webster does for chess, not only having your team be so competitive, you also have chess ingrained on campus and culture with the chess minor that you guys provide. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we started a minor degree at Webster University in chess about 3 years ago in 2022. And I believe that was the first time any university in the United States has offered a degree in chess. It has 18 credit hours and has lots of courses ranging from um, chess and history, chess in business, chess and artificial intelligence. So we covers a lot of interest from students, and it is growing. It is growing here in the United States and also in Uzbekistan, where Webster also has a big campus there. So in the last few semesters, we have been offering chess courses in Uzbekistan, and we have lots of students. All the classes are fully filled, and I estimate between 150 and 200 students each semester. So that's a lot of students taking chess classes. So we hope to grow chess globally as well, and in the United States as well. And I think that will not only help the top players, the GMs, but also the lower rated players, the people who are into chess, and they are also they have other choices, and that can help with their career as well.
So chess.com and Webster University partnered recently to help support this minor degree, and we've been giving free chess.com diamond memberships to all the students enrolled in your courses. So if there's any other universities out there that would like to potentially start a chess minor of their own, feel free to either reach out to Webster or chess.com, and we can see if we can help get that going.
Yeah, thank you chess.com for that, because I think the students, they really love on the features on chess.com, and it's very useful that we organize tournaments there. We provide the resources for them. That helps with the classes as well, and we're sure that this will keep growing in the next few years.
Awesome. So we always appreciate growing the game of chess, especially in a college context. And I guess we have one last game that we haven't checked out yet, the board 4.
Yes. So this board, so on paper you can see this is Slew's weakest board. Of course, he's not a bad player, but he's not a GM, and he didn't do so well in this tournament so far. In round 1, I think he lost a bad game to Aditya Salmons. So everyone on the other teams know that we need to put pressure on this ball, and that's what we are trying here as well. Emilio, he got a good position from the opening. Now he has the space, he has the bishop pair. Black has a weakness on e6. So it's slightly easier to play for white, but having said that, it's not so clear what should do right now. First of all, black has only one weakness, the e6 pawn. So we need to attack that, but it's easy for black to defend with king f7 and rook on e8. So at some point, I think white has to play c4 and try to play for d5, open up the position for the bishop pair. If white can successfully open up the position, then the bishop pair becomes stronger, and white would be doing very well there. So I think the correct move right now is c4, and then I expect the black knight to drop back to f6, and maybe white can put the bishop on c3 and keep playing maybe double rooks on the e file or on the d file, and at some point try to play d5. So it is harder to play for black because black has to be passive here. Black has to defend, put the two rooks on the d or the e file, and try to wait until white play d5. So it's really a question of when to play d5, and when that happens, can white get something from that? Yeah, I think d5 is white's only possibility of breaking through here, and it will be interesting to see how that may happen. Emilio has the time advantage, so that's looking good, but yeah, we have to see. I think on the balls right now, at this moment, I like our chances so far, but again, it's still too early to say.
It's definitely too early to say, so anything can happen, but this has to be a dream start, really, for this round. looking at how they've all started so far.
Yeah, I agree. I think we couldn't ask for better positions for Webster players. Of course, their job is to convert, to put more pressure. Eventually, something may happen. Um, but that's stress, right? Sometimes you put maximum pressure and your opponent um, cracks and they make mistakes and then you win. But other times they defend it perfectly and there's nothing you can do. So it's a game of chess, and you just have to take your chances whenever you're given them.
So I remember last year Webster had a player, Aram Hakobian, as he graduated.
Yeah, we did.
And so I've asked a couple of the other coaches about the recruitment process. What do you do specifically when you're looking for potential recruits?
Yeah, so there are lots of things we do when recruiting. First of all, I have to determine who are the potential players that I can recruit. There are not a lot of chess players in this world, so we know the chess world is relatively small, and the people who are willing to go to college probably a smaller number. And so we reach out to these people. We see who are who are suitable with our program. And sometimes I have interview with them online on Zoom. Sometimes I meet them in person in some tournaments that I go to. And then I offer them some scholarship. They come. If they like it, they agree, and then they do the paperwork to join Webster as a student, and then they come as a team. So there are lots of people who apply to my program at Webster University. So we have choices. Of course, we have limited numbers of scholarships that we can give out. So usually I try the most, I choose the most qualified students. But that doesn't mean that if a player is not a grandmaster, they don't have a chance. That's not the case, because in the past and right now also Webster University has been giving scholarships to some lower rated players. Of course, they are not receiving the same amount of the same level of scholarship as the GMs, but they have decent scholarships, and that help get more people in the program, recruit more people for the university, and if anyone is interested in playing chess while in college, please feel free to reach out to me.
Awesome. And obviously being in St. Louis is a big appeal to chess players. What is one reason why someone would choose to go to Webster as opposed to any other chess scholarship school?
Right. That's a good question, because at this time I think there are lots of schools that are giving out scholarships, very competitive scholarships. And I believe one thing that really differentiates us with other schools is our training discipline and focus we put on chess, and we are really serious about chess. I am the only coach at Webster. Other schools, they may have one or two coaches, but I believe so far I'm the only 2700 FIDE rated player as a coach. So by coming to Webster, they know that they have the opportunity to work with me directly and other very strong teammates. And we are all very serious chess players. So if they come, they are in an environment where they are constantly having access to excellence, having access to good players, good training sessions, and that will help them improve as a player, because the environment, I believe, is even more important than the financial incentive. So any serious chess players, they would seriously consider Webster, because they know that's just looking at the records of Webster, we have won 10 Pan Ams and 6 Final Four in the last 12 years. So I think chess players understand that, and that's why I have been doing okay, quite well with recruiting. And next year I expect to grow the team even more and have more grandmasters coming in.
Wow, so the results really speak for themselves.
I think so.
And I'm looking forward to see what new talent you can bring to the team. So something else that you mentioned, you're the only coach that's 2,700. You obviously are a very competitive player yourself, and something I asked you just the other day was about your freestyle events. Are there any other tournaments that you're participating in that you'd like to tell us about?
Yeah, so um, in about a week after this tournament, I'm traveling to um, Germany for the Krenki Freestyle Open tournament. It will be the first time that I'll be playing freestyle chess 960 in the classical time control. So I'm really excited and looking forward to that. Um, I don't know how I will do because freestyle I haven't played much of that, and the good thing is you don't have to prepare because you don't know any position to prepare. But I think it will be exciting. It will be a change, and I'll see how I do. Other than that, I will also play the Lyon Masters, which is the rapid tournament in the beginning of July. There will be me, Vichy Anand, Santos Latassa, and Faustino Oro. So just 4 players for that tournament. It takes only a few days, I think 3-4 days. And then right after that, I go to Bill, trying to defend my title. I have won the Bill Grandmaster Triathlon for 3 years in a row, so I'm trying to make it 4 times. And other than those, probably I will also play World Cup in November, but not so much. Those are my favorite tournaments of the year. Other than that, I focus more on coaching nowadays, and I try to plan my playing schedule around that, because I enjoy playing still. I think I still love the game. I still feel like I learn a lot from each game, and I can still improve. So that's why I'm playing. And also another reason is when I go to tournaments, it's also a good place to recruit other students. No better place to meet your potential students than in a big open tournament, for example. So I'm excited to go there, and hopefully I'll do well on the ball as well as recruiting.
That's really awesome. I feel like you've got a jam-packed schedule coming up ahead, and it's probably good that this is probably the last major event for the collegiate calendar, so you can maybe take some time over the summer to focus on your events, and like you said, it doubles as recruiting as well. I think when people see you having success, that might pique their interest in having you as a coach.
Yeah, I hope so. So this is really the ultimate challenge of collegiate chess, the final tournament of the season, the pinnacle of collegiate chess with only the top 4 teams, which are our best in this tournament. Then after this, the summer will be a little bit slower. Some students will go home, go play some other tournaments. We still do some activities at Webster during the summer. We have summer camps. We have the Susan Ponga Girls Invitational, which we already scheduled for June. So we have lots of events coming up. And then when the students come back in the fall in August, we will start training right away. Usually we start early when they're back. So we have the full 3-4 months to train for Pan Ams, and right after Pan Ams, if we qualify for the Final Four, we will start training right away for the Final Four.
So I have one last question for you, Liam. Obviously, as a former student and alum of Webster, I had mentioned this idea previously, and I also mentioned it just the other day to Julio, who is an alum of UT Dallas. Who do you think would be the favorite if we set up an alumni league? Which school has the strongest alumni?
Yeah, that's an interesting idea, Joe. Well, it depends on the format, but let's say if it's just 4 against 4, right? And if we are able to get our best alumni to play, I don't think it will be a competition. Because, look, I'm not going to lie about it, because just look at the list of the alumni. How many 2,700 plus federated players from other universities? alumni from other universities? I think none, zero. From Webster, we have Wesley So, myself, and Ray Robson. So just look at that. I don't think that will be close. But I think that would be a fun competition for sure. Our program, although it's not the oldest program, I have to give that credit to UT Dallas. They have a long tradition, and I'm sure they have much more alumni than Webster. But our alumni, last time I counted, was more than 50 people. They are some of the best chess players in the world, and we are very proud that we helped them get to where they are now, and hopefully they will continue to improve, and we will have more and more alumni who will succeed, not only in the chess world, but in whatever field they decide that they want to work on.
So were you teammates at the time with Wesley and Ray?
Yeah. So Wesley and Ray, they joined 1 year before me, 2012. I came in 2013. So we were there together for, Wesley were there for 2 more years. Then after that, Ray was there until 1 year until I left. So I was there for 4 years and Ray was there for 6 years. So we are very good friends, and we still are closely in touch with each other. And it's nice to see them doing quite well in chess nowadays, and I'm rooting for them whenever I see them playing tournaments, rooting for the US team in Olympiad, for example. And I think you mentioned earlier about chess in St. Louis, because St. Louis has really been the hub for chess players. And I think it's really nice that although Webster University is not affiliated with the St. Louis Chess Club, but we benefited from being close to the chess club and having many talents wanting to come to St. Louis. So I think it's been really a nice advantage, a nice thing to be in St. Louis right now, and that's why chess players should really consider St. Louis, and especially Webster University, as the place to help them develop their chess career.
So if we started an alumni league, would you get back in touch with Wesley and Ray and say, hey, let's get the team back together?
Yeah, definitely.
You'd play with them?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, and then you could maybe beat up on some of the other schools. Yeah, I would love to see that. But yeah, Liam, thank you for your time. Really appreciate having you, and good luck to your team. It looks like they're in a good position.
Okay, thank you, John. We'll see how it goes.
All right, take care. All right, well, with that, I think we can maybe take a break. And welcome back. Thanks for sticking with us. This is the 2025 President's Cup Round 3, the final round, the grand finale. This is going to determine the U.S. Team College Chess Championship. So my name's Joe. I'm joined once again by the amazing Brian Escalante. Brian, what are your thoughts on the day so far?
I don't think I can say I'm so shocked, because this is what tends to happen in chess. But as I was saying before, I thought from the start of the match that Zhu was the clear favorite to win today. And now suddenly I think the tables have turned. Now it's Webster, the one who is on the lead. This happens in chess. It's actually, I would say chess is a merciless game. There's no mercy, in the sense of you can play 20 good moves and then suddenly one single mistake and you can either be drawing or even losing. And I think that's because it's a constant fight, you know? And that's what's going on today, I think, between the match between Webster and Slew.
Yeah, so to give some context, yesterday we saw Slew and Webster take the initial lead. They're tied at 4.5 points each. But UTRGV is not that far behind them, only a half point back with 4 points. And UTRGV is playing against UT Dallas, who has struggled in the first day with only 3 points total. So maybe we can take a look at these games here. We want to focus on this top match between the two St. Louis schools.
Definitely.
Webster and Slew. And so let's just start with board one here. We've got Robbie, who's been lights out, a perfect 2-0 so far.
Mm-hmm.
And he also has the white pieces. Harsha, who's been struggling, he's 0 for 2, but looks like he's holding his ground for now.
Yeah. Harsha has placed all his pawns in dark squares, the opposite color his bishop, therefore he has no weaknesses. Definitely the bishop on b5. It's a better bishop than the one on g2. Ideally, Robbie would like to try this one. But in general, I will say that here Harsha is the one who is playing for the win. And that's a great outcome, taking into consideration that Robbie scored 12-2 yesterday, and also he had the white pieces again. So I think this is looking pretty good for Webster. Now on board 2, who do we have, Joe?
Board 2 for Slew is Dambasurin Batsurin with the black pieces against Lazaro Batista. And maybe we can go back, because when I was looking at this game with Webster's head coach, Grandmaster Liam Lee, it looked like Lazaro Batista actually was for choice.
Let's take a look at it. So bishop takes c4, e5. You tell me which moment you were looking at with Liam. Was it here?
No, it was a couple moves later. There was this a4 pawn sacrifice.
Here.
And then black managed to get a bishop pair for it.
Right.
Black activates the rook, and this was the last that we saw.
Pretty interesting idea. Giving the pawn and then transferring the rook to the attack. Even though the engine might not agree with it, I think it's something to consider, definitely. And from a human point of view, from suddenly being a little bit worse to putting practical problems to your opponent does play a huge role, especially in these games, where there's a lot of tension. Like they all know that every single point will define who's going to be the champion. So I think from a human point of view, this idea of rook a5, rook h5, it puts a lot of pressure on Lazaro. And actually, right away, he made a mistake, actually. Because once again, I'm telling you, it's always pretty easy to say, oh, but he was better with this other move. But then when you're sitting on the board, you don't know the evaluation. All you see is like a rook has switched from one side of the board to the other, and now it's going to attack you, and suddenly you start seeing all sorts of trouble for white. And that's why he played bishop e2 to kind of help in the defense. Knight g4, the knight joins the attack, and h3. And here, Dabasuri, I'm pretty sure he saw this in advance. He played the move queen d6, and basically with this move, it makes the knight untouchable, since if he were to take it, then it will be checkmate. And this just leaves white with a constant pressure on the king side, since now he's forced to take after bishop takes, rook d2. Now black could, if he wanted to, take on h3 and probably has promising attack, although white might be able to defend her. But even just going back with the bishop, even though he's a pawn down, you can compare black pieces, how harmonious they are. Let's say bishop d7. You have this pawn e4, which is pretty annoying for white in the sense that the knight on e1 has no good squares, at least in the short term. Then you have this constant target of h3, which could potentially be an object for sacrifice with the bishop, or even something like g5, g4. And in general, it feels like the white pieces are a little bit far away from the action that's going on the king's side. What are your thoughts here, Joe?
I definitely agree with the harmony of the black pieces. Black has the luxury of potentially sacrificing, or they can pull back and maintain that threat in the long run. White's going to constantly be on their toes, not knowing when the sacrifice will be made, if it will be made, and how to deal with it at any time. And black also has the luxury of time, of maybe pushing the g-pawn and getting the attack going in many different ways. However, I do want to point out, Batsurin has less than 10 minutes. Lazaro Batista has over 25 minutes. So this could be a case of some severe time pressure coming up.
And he did take on h3. Look at that.
So Batsurin has just played his move, his sacrifice, and this is why he's taken so much time. You want to make sure that it works out.
Definitely.
So let's maybe look a little bit at what happens if we immediately capture.
So we probably do have to catch her, otherwise we'll be equal material and still remain all the advantages that we just mentioned. I mean, also after the bishop goes back, the main on h2 will be unstoppable. So yeah, he needs to capture. Then there's two moves here. There's either queen check first or rook takes. Let's say rook takes seems more natural. And now
checkmate.
I'm threatening queen h2 checkmate. So white only has one way to defend it. Actually, there's two. There's either f3 or f4, right?
Mhm.
F4 will look more natural as you will block the queen.
Yeah.
And then probably here black needs to recapture on F3, open the position, also bringing this rook into the attack, the rook on E8. As for now, H2 is being covered by the rook on D2. That was another reason why Lazaro played rook D2 at some point. And after, let's say, knight takes F3, rook takes E3. Black currently has 2 pawns for the piece, but it seems like white is not coordinating enough in order to use his extra piece, you know? And therefore, I would think that black has more than enough compensation here for the piece.
So the knight's hanging right now, right?
Right.
How do we save that?
Because also if we move the knight, let's say something like knight E5,
We're getting checked.
we're getting checked. And then our king probably has to run, otherwise we will lose another pawn and regain the
Oof.
piece. So king F2 and this, even though
We still lose the pawn, or we get checked on F6.
it seems like we get checked on F6, but like even though like the engine is saying like this is still fine for white, from a human point of view, you don't know, like this is still like on the edge of close to equal, you know, like visually speaking, it looks like white might get checkmate. Let's say queen F6, king E1, rook E3. Only move is rook E2, otherwise the rook on F1 will be lost. And let's say something like takes, knight takes is not possible because the queen will be hanging. King takes, say check, king E1, queen H4, and then we pick up the D4 pawn.
Mm.
And
With check.
With check, yeah.
That's
It's
very
important to
enticing.
notice that Lazaro will need to point out that at the end of the line he has this queen F7, and therefore he wouldn't be losing the knight, but spotting all of this in advance is pretty hard, especially with the time control, with the time that they have left for the rest of the game, you know? Lazaro probably already took, yeah? And Dambasur decided to go for queen G6 first instead of rook takes H3. Probably trying to force the knight to go to G2. And now he took. I would think the difference why he preferred this line is because now he stops F4, as now the rook will be, the knight wouldn't be protecting F3 anymore. And now his next threat is queen H5, threatening checkmate on H1.
And the F pawn still has to push, right?
Right. It seems like the best way to always defend is bringing more pieces into the defense, in this case knight E2. But after bishop D6, it seems like black pieces just keep coming into the attack and
They don't
constantly.
stop.
Yeah, it never stops. It's a constant
There's
struggle
there's
here.
another rook on the way.
It is coming too. Yeah, imagine something like boom, 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 rook G6. Yeah, of course this is a dream, but yeah, I would think that Lazaro here probably thinks that he's close to be losing. That would be my impression.
He's got to be nervous.
Definitely, especially based on the fact that he knows that Yasser now has a better position. You know, I think Harsha also is now pushing, so I think those factors do play a role. I mean, in that sense, he's a little bit more relaxed for that, but at the same time, he doesn't want to lose this game. At this point, might be critical, right?
Yeah.
So,
So we're gonna have some very strong attacking chess here, and Lazaro's putting on the defense right now. 92 is a move that you suggested has just been
Right.
played.
It was probably the only move to incorporate pieces to the defense. Now we will probably quickly see bishop d6. And I think after that, Lazaro will have to give back another pawn after knight g3. And black will just play with a compensation of those 3 pawns and some sort of attack for the piece. Still important to mention, as you said, that Dambasurin has only 9 minutes on the clock. I think that's definitely going to play a big role in the game. Quickly, we have bishop d6, knight g3.
They're blitzing.
They're blitzing, yeah. I mean, it's his only moves. Now, Dambasuri has a couple of options. I would say he can either take, he can push the h pawn, maybe plays also like rook e6, trying to incorporate one more piece into the attack. He doesn't have that much time also. That's pretty important to notice. I think he will have to start playing more practical, you know, keeping some winning chances, but at the same time, not risking all in if not needed, you know. Although, based on the match situation, he probably does need to play for the win, taking into account that the other boards of his team are not doing that great, right?
I want rook e6.
You want rook e6?
That's aggressive.
Hopefully he hears you and he will play
That's
it.
scary.
Hopefully. Let's take a look at the board 3 of this match. We had Nicolisi with white pieces for for Slu playing against Yasser for Webster. I remember I said at the beginning of this match that I really like White's position. Let me take a look at how the game developed.
Yeah, this was also a position I said this is textbook opening for white.
Yeah, it's how ideal you want to develop all your pieces, right? Your bishops on b5 and g5, your queen out of the way, giving you the luxury, as you said, to either long castle or short castle. He long castle in the end, knight g4.
Where do you mess it up?
That's a good question. let's take a look. Queen d2. I don't know if queen d2 was necessary. Maybe queen e2 was more precise. It's always hard to tell, you know, because at the same time, even though white has more development, he doesn't have a clear target right away. You know, most often than not in these Sicilian lines, the engine always says white slightly better, but that involves sacrificing some kind of piece at some point, and it's only one moment that you get, you know. And then if you miss that chance, suddenly becomes equal. And also, something important to mention is that in a Sicilian, you know, black always has a really healthy pawn structure. If you think about it, you know, this pawn e6 and d6 covering all these squares, only two eyes of pawns, usually this advance of a6, b5. So in general, the Sicilian is a pretty, how to say, logically speaking, good opening to play. And usually the only way that white can take advantage of it is by constantly making moves that threat stuff. But then at the point where white stops coming out with those threats and black gets a chance to organize, then black tends to be completely fine. So queen d2, rook c8. Of course, not bishop e7. That will just be a disaster. We need to incorporate one more piece into the action. Rook c8, h3, knight g5, knight takes e5. Usually, I don't like to take on e5. I think probably knight d4 might have been better. Oh no! Oh no! No! It's a good thing he took on e5. Okay.
Maybe our bishop on g5 can be attacked.
Could be hanging in the end, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Knight g5. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, at the same time, he's not threatening anything right now. He would just take, pawn takes back. Maybe bring the king to b1 would have been a better prophylactic move, you know, just in case there's any kind of cities or sacrifices. In general, you don't wanna force things here. You wanna give black the chance to make a mistake, you know. That's why I wouldn't take on e5. Takes. And yeah, even though visually speaking, you might think, oh, the king is in danger now. There's actually no clear way to get to it. It's pretty safe on d7. Now the knight is jumping to c3. This bishop might be hanging some lines after knight c4. And suddenly, out of nowhere, black's the one in charge here. That's why, yeah, probably king b1 would have been a better prophylactic move, you know, against this sort of ideas. Imagine the same line. Knight takes, pawn takes. Something like knight e5. I don't even know if I want to trade. Maybe I would just keep my bishop on e2. I think that would be something to consider. But even in this version, having a king on b1 does make a huge difference, as now the a2 will be protected if black ever decides to sacrifice on c3. So the game continues. Knight takes e5, knight takes e5, bishop takes, king takes, f4, knight c4, queen d4, and b5. Good move by Yasser, keeping the pressure on white. King b1, knight takes b2. Tactics start arising, right? King takes, and rook c4. And now black will recover the piece with an extra pawn, right? And yeah, black's just an extra pawn for no real compensation. And I would think that Yasser most likely will take this home. With the extra 15 minutes plus not only the extra pawn, but also the psychological advantage, you know, you got your prep out, you know, like you worked, you got a better position, and suddenly you face yourself with the white pieces with being a pawn down with less time on the clock. That's just psychological devastating, you know. I think that sometimes underestimating chess how trends can play a huge role, you know. It's not the same thing like in a soccer game to be like 0-0 in score compared to being 2-0 at some point of the match, and then suddenly they equalize you with 2-2, you know. Like the player who came back always has the upper hand in those situations. So yeah, I think Yasser will probably take this home. And then on board 4, who do we have, Joe?
Tianqi versus Emilio. Tianqi
Mhm.
from St. Louis University and Emilio from Webster.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I thought this game will be a long maneuvering game, and this is what we have. I think Emilio has managed to achieve a long-term advantage, taking into fact the pair of bishops and also how Black has some couple of weaknesses like the pawn on e6, some potential c4 that could strike at a5. At the right moment, you might play some d5 when the tactics arise. Also, this pawn h5 is pretty annoying for Black, as g7 is a backwards pawn. And yeah, in general, I would say Emilio has a pretty comfortable position. Still, Tianqi is well known for always putting up resistance, even in tough situations. So I think it will be pretty interesting to see if Emilio is able to convert here with only having 30 minutes on the clock. I think it's gonna be most likely Emilio. I think will be able to convert, but we will see definitely. So that will mean that on board 1, we have Harsha slightly pushing with the black pieces from Webster. Then we have Dan Basurin for Slew, trying to do the same thing. Then on board 3, I would say it's almost a clear victory for Yasser, most likely. That will be 1-0 for Webster. And then Emilio is also pushing on board 4. So I think, in my opinion, Webster is the clear favorite to win this tournament. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I would say that they're the favorite given the position, largely thanks to Yasser Quesada Perez's position against Nicolosi. But I wouldn't say it's so clear. I think that there's still a lot of chances on the remaining 3 boards. But overall, definitely looking good for Webster there. I think maybe we should go take a look at the Texas rivalry matchup. We might have some more clarity with these games.
Let's do it. So on board 1, we have Gleb Dudin for UTRGB playing against Ivan Skitko from UTD. Last thing we saw is that basically Dudin Ivan went for this endgame, which I mentioned that I think objectively speaking should be slightly better for White, but if White doesn't take advantage of it, Black should be completely fine. But I do think that Dudin was able to put pressure. This move knight a4, rook e8, and then rook ac1. It's just simply, it's easier to play for White in these positions, like Black has to constantly keep worrying about e5. There's ideas of gaining more space with c5 eventually. Black struggles to develop this bishop and rook on h8, and therefore, even though the engine only says slightly better for White, in practice tends to be pretty hard to defend for Black. Actually, he ended up playing bishop b4, and then White just pushed c5, and then followed by a3 and b4. He will just keep gaining space, while Black has to constantly keep solving issues here. Rook e7, a3, b4, gaining more space, and now we improve the other pieces. Knight d2, important move to get the knight to c4, and then potentially to d6. We can see how the space advantage just allows White to maneuver easily, in an easier way compared to Black, right? Due to this c5 and b4. Rook d8. Black gets his last rook into the game. Knight c4. Bishop e6. Knight e6. King ba. Ivan decided not to give up his bishop. Probably the best choice to do. And that now he did give it back at this point. Probably his argument was like, okay, if I'm gonna take this knight, at least I don't want to take with a pawn and then get another knight on c5. And therefore, as Dudin came back with a knight to c3, he was willing to take the knight in this version. Rook takes, also trying to put the other rook on d1 and control the d file. White enjoys a pretty comfortable advantage due to the pair of bishops. Knight e8, rook d2 in order to bring the other rook to d1. Rook c8. Knight e4. Now bringing this knight to d6. Like d6 square is it's an ideal spot for White, constantly taking advantage of it. f6, f4, trying to keep the bishop on b2 alive. It's important to always have all your pieces playing, and especially when you have the pair of bishops, you always want to have the position open. That's the whole point of f4. Bishop d5, takes, knight takes, and knight d6. Important move. It might have seemed like Black was already consolidating, having this knight on e5, blocking the bishop on b2. But in reality, after knight d6, Black still has a lot of issues, concrete issues to solve, especially having this bishop attack, then the rook attack. Knight takes d6, pawn takes d6, and now white wins a pawn, right? After this move. Oh, he played e4. He didn't take on d5. Interesting. So probably taking on d5 would have been a clear pawn, but probably maybe not enough to win the game. As after rook takes maybe king d7, black still in the game. I mean, white will still be a pawn up, but Dudin says that it's better to not trade his bishop in this way and bring his king, the b8 king, into the action. Instead goes for e4. And after bishop e6, rook c5. So now he will win the e5 pawn instead. That will mean he will have two connected pass pawns. And yeah, it seems like it's things are getting pretty rough for board one of UTD here.
Yeah, I love this line of pushing e4 and then rook c5. This is really
Pretty precise play by Dudi. Yes.
really nice touches there. I love having the two center pawns passed, connected. I mean, you can't ask for much more from your pawns.
Definitely. After b6, rook takes e5, rook f6. Yeah, I think it's gonna be pretty hard to hold this, taking into account the amount of time Dudin has. 14 minutes should be more than enough. There's also no risk for white. This position is risk-free. You know how sometimes one side has an advantage, but then they need to worry that they might get checkmated, or maybe they need to coordinate its pieces. In this case, white pieces are coordinated. He has a pass pawn, no weaknesses. So I think Dudin should be able to convert this. Hopefully, Ivan finds a way to complicate the game in time scramble. That will be the main goal. But yeah, I think Dudin most likely should win this game. Let's go to board 2. Who do we have here, Joe?
We've got Sean Rodriguez Lemieux from UT Rio Grande Valley up against Andre McAvey from UT Dallas. McAvey having 1.5 points, which is half of Dallas's total points, and Sean having 2 draws yesterday with the black pieces here today.
Yeah, as we were saying at the beginning of this game, this queen h5 that McAvey play on move 5 or 6, I'm pretty sure this was preparation by him. I don't know how often this move is played, but it definitely did surprise Sean. So I think opening wise, black achieved what he wanted, and it seems like ever since then, white has been able to keep his advantage throughout the game, I would think. After training the dark square bishop, now having this pawn e5 plays a huge role. Having black play this pawn on g6, right? These squares on f6 and d6 are always targets for white to take advantage of. Getting a knight there will be amazing. And in general, just white holds a long-term advantage having control over the dark squares, basically. Bishop e5, bishop d7, short castle. There's no need for long castle, as maybe we can be in trouble later on with the rook on c8 and some sacrifice on c3. It's better to just short castle and keep the long-term advantage. Short castle, rook fe1, important to overprotect our main asset in the position, e5. Rook ac8, h4, always useful move to have in this sort of position. When you have a pawn g6, you want to be able to take advantage of that weakness created and play h5, maybe even sometimes h6. Sean didn't like allowing the pawn to get to h5, therefore he plays h5 himself. At the same time, that creates more weaknesses, right? Every time we push a pawn in front of our king, we allow for more targets. Queen f4, king g7, rook a d1, completing the development of all his pieces. And now knight b8. Sean understands that he's lacking space, therefore he needs to start trading pieces somehow. Otherwise, he might just get crushed in the long run. Bishop f1, good move. I would say important concept to know is whenever you have more space, don't allow your opponent to trade pieces that easily. Keep as much as possible. Of course, there are some exceptions, but let's say as a general rule, that's what you should try to achieve. f5, Sean just wants to close the position, and if white were to take on f6, then he will take back with the rook. I think this, or with the queen, I assume, based on what the engine is saying. I think this also would have been a good choice, taking into account the fact that now e6 becomes a new target, d5 also. He probably considered that there's no need to open the f file for black and just keep the rook on fa passive, and that's why he decided to keep maneuvering with the knight on d2. I personally, I think, will have taken on f6, but this also looks like an advantage for white. Bishop e5. Sean needs to trade more pieces. Knight d4. Rook takes. King takes, as the rook is ideally placed on e1. Knight c6, c3. Apparently the engine didn't like this move. The question is why? It looks like a pretty healthy move to me. Maybe it's a matter of white not playing so aggressive, taking advantage of his space, and by playing too slow, maybe black is going to be able to recover. What do you think, Joe?
I think white maybe had an opportunity to plant the knight on d6.
You mean knight b5 here right away?
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like it, yeah. Then knight d6, followed by probably c4, trying to finally open the position, having these rooks placed on d and e. Maybe would have been a better way to proceed. Maybe the time of slowly playing, just keeping your advantages already passed, and it was time to take action, take advantage of this pawn on e5, right? Maybe that's why c3 is a little bit too slow. Knight e4, knight g1, trying to kick out this knight and probably bring the knight back through h3 and then g5, which will pressure on e6.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why Sean took. Rook takes. You don't want to allow this rook to infiltrate to the c file. Rook takes, and b5. Sean understands that he needs to create counterplay no matter what. If he just waits passively, white is gonna get all he wants with kicking out the knight h3, knight g5, and so on and so forth. Knight e2, rook c4. The point of playing b5 is that now if white were to take the rook, now we can take back with the b pawn, and now b2 becomes one target for black. That was the whole idea of b5. And I think currently this is the current position, rook c4. White still has an edge, definitely. Not as much as in the previous moves. But taking into account the time pressure that Andre has 10 minutes and Sean has 3, I will say that Andre is a clear favorite here. Although I think Sean is a pretty good defender, he creates a lot of problems. So I think still in the air, but the results in the air. But most likely, I think Andre will convert. What do you think, Joe? How do you think the trend of the game is going here?
Yeah, I agree with that. Andre has been playing really well so far this tournament. Sean is actually to 3 minutes now on this clock, which is, I think, the lowest of any of the players competing right now. So, that's not true. There's one more, actually, the next game.
Yeah, f3 has been played, knight c5, but let's go to the next game on the meantime. On board 3, we have Cardoso against Costa. We said that the opening didn't go that great for Kostov, and now it seems like he's in a lot of trouble based on the current position. His king is on e6. There's no clear way to checkmate it as of right now, but it seems like he will be losing a lot of material after, let's say, rook takes h8. If they take with a queen, then queen e5 or bishop e5 will be terrible for black. And then if they take with a queen, after taking on b7, the rook will incorporate into the attack. And I think black is just lost here. I don't see a way to put resistance, especially given the time situation with 14 minutes against 1 minute. I think most likely Cardoso will win this game, which will put UTRGB 1 point up in the match. And then on board 4, who do we have, Joe?
We've got Aditya from UT Dallas and Jakub Fuss from Rio Grande Valley.
Right, and I think this was also a Caro-Kann. We were saying that Aditya got a comfortable position, but it's only after black play f6 and open up the f file, he started getting a lot of counterplay. And right now, we see the engine is saying it's equal, but in practice, I don't know how obvious that is. I'll visually speaking, like it looks like black has the upper hand.
What?
Are they already agreed to a draw?
Wait, I'm sorry.
So they repeated moves here. So he played knight d3, Knight f4, king f2.
Why?
Brave move.
Why? Yeah, why? Is this right?
Because the thing is that if rook takes d6, then knight 3 mate.
That's just main one. Oh my
That's
god.
the beauty, and I think there's no other way to stop the mate, other than there's bishop takes f4, but then black will be this is what I meant that black has the upper hand because in this position, d4 is fallen and black should be completely winning.
So
But
just king f2 is a
the
draw.
king f2 and suddenly the queen is
Can
trapped.
we go back like 5 moves?
Yeah, we should honestly. This was
This
Crazy
game
game.
is crazy.
so this is I think this is where we left off in the commentary. Knight c5, rook c1, everything sort of normal. Black, this typical opponent structure in the French, even though it was a carrow, transposed to this structure where black has the
What-
pawn on
Can we
e6.
go
weak,
back a move?
even more.
Yeah, what? No. Well, I was looking, instead of rook c1, why don't we take on b7 with tempo?
You mean
Is there
here?
like queen
Queen
b4?
b4. I think we'll
Okay.
probably lose this pawn on d4, which is crucial,
Alright.
and then
We lose the plot.
then on b7 also will.
Okay, so
We'll
we
be
defend.
hanging.
We rook c1.
Yeah. b6,
they
kicking
kick
the knight.
Yeah.
Knight a6, trying to create some kind of counterplay. Let's say maybe queen a4 eventually. Rook ac8, queen d2. In general, in these positions, black tends to be pretty comfortable due to the fact that the d4 is a constant worry for white. He needs to always keep an eye on d4. And then in this case also the knight on a6 is pretty much misplaced. So bishop b4, rook c3, now trying to double on the c file, g5, trying to open the king side now that the rook has moved to c3 and it's not connected to the rook on f1 anymore. Pawn takes, bishop g7. Very interesting side sacrifice here by Jacob, opening the f file in order to create problems against the white king, having his bishop on e4, right? Which is in some way targeting towards the king. So I think that was a pretty interesting side sacrifice here. Takes, bishop b5, knight e7, looks natural to me, rook c7, knight g6, and rook d7. That's how we got here. So in this moment, technically speaking, the queen is trapped, but of course Jacob went for this knowing that he has knight f4, and suddenly, even though it seems like white is close to be losing due to being forced to take and get into this worse hanging, he has this amazing move, king f2, and there's no way to take advantage of this discovered check. I feel like pretty often than not, people, especially in lower levels, when they're calculating, they stop here. They say, no, there's no way king f2 can be a move. Like, it's in front of the rook. I have to be losing somehow, But then I always ask them a question. Okay, tell me how. Like, how is he losing? And I think that's what makes the difference. I think Aditya here probably calculated all the way until here. He saw that king f2 doesn't lose right away. And Jacob agreed with it, and he just went for the repetition after king g1, knight f4.
Can we look at one line? It's asking for knight g2. So king f2.
Yeah, knight g2.
Knight g2, king g1,
Yes.
and now knight takes e3.
I can take the queen because f1 is covered by the bishop.
Now it's saying knight c2.
It's pretty cool. Even though black only has one bishop for the queen, these two bishops are monsters, right? And then if white has to give up the queen for the bishop, then black will be many pawns up. Apparently, after h3, black can take on d4,
King
king
h2.
h2,
now.
bishop e5, king g1, and bishop takes. Now black has a rook
God.
and a bishop for the queen, and not only that, still has some attack while the bishop on f1 and the knight on a6 are not participating in the game. Only moves bishop d3 in order to stop this coordination. And apparently after bishop f4, queen takes c2, bishop e3.
This is crazy.
We will reach either an sort of equal endgame, which honestly doesn't look equal to me
Oh
at
my
first
God.
sight. I will think that black's winning here, but
Oh, yeah,
apparently
bishop takes pawn takes.
if-
Like that pawn's running.
yeah, but maybe not. or black can just repeat with bishop f4, king g1, bishop e3. I think definitely if black saw this idea, should have gone for it. Apparently he had 17 minutes left on the clock, so definitely I will have.
It's complicated.
I would have gone for it. I think, especially considering that the only way for UTRGB to play for the victory of this tournament is to win by a big margin, but the players agreed to a draw already. Pretty crazy game.
Yeah, DT has been playing well, so draw maybe not the worst.
Good tournament, 12
result.
3. Yeah, I think it's a solid result for Aditya, especially
Yeah.
taking into account his first year, playing a Final Four.
Is that another result that we have?
Cardoso already won, as we mentioned. Kostov just resigned after rook takes, knight takes, g4, bishop g6, bishop h3. Just either we lose to the queen
man.
or it gets checkmated. So yeah,
That's brutal.
it was time to resign. Therefore, UTRGB is currently winning by 1.5. Correct. Andre pushing with the white pieces here in this time scramble. Knight e7, rook g8, knight f4, king h7,
UTRGB
rook
could
e1.
win.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. I don't think it's that trivial to win these positions. Although definitely based on the time situation, I think Andre should be able to convert. Hopefully,
It's a blitz game could go any way.
let's take a look at the top match. I think we're gonna have some
Also,
really.
I want to give a shout out to our viewers. We've got Nifa and Sack Checkmate in the chat, so appreciate you guys hanging around. If anyone else is there, say something. Let us know you're here, where you're tuning in from. We had Speed Chess as well, and shout out to Brody, of course, fan favorite. And yeah, we've got the games are wrapping up here pretty quickly. We're gonna have an exciting finish. So show us what we missed so far and any updates for this top matchup.
Yeah, I think let's take a look at the Lazarus game, since that was the game we were saying that Dan Basurin sacrificed a piece in order to get an attack. And we have some developments, queen b5 after h5, c6. Important to notice that queen f5, trading the queens wouldn't be an option due to takes, bishop h2. And suddenly after g6, let's say, the knight is trapped. There's no good square for the knight. After, let's say, knight g h4, he can just regain the piece like this. That's why Lazaro played queen takes b7, threatening queen d7, for example, sometimes attacking all the pieces. h4 anyway. And now he took on c6.
Mess. Big mess.
Apparently the only way was to play queen
yeah,
d7.
this is forking the rooks, right?
Which is not intuitive at all, I will
So
say.
you could play rook e6, you block the rooks, yeah.
And then take on h4. The difference being that with the queen on d7, after rook takes h4, you have queen d8. Compared to having the queen on c6, you don't have
That's a
this
fork.
extra option.
Yeah.
That's why queen d7 was more precise.
Wow. So Lazaro missed the opportunity here. Grabbed a pawn.
It's tough. I mean, with time control, with its time control, the nerves, seeing how your teammates are doing well, but if you lose, you might make them a little bit more nervous. Yeah, it is rough to find the good moves in these situations.
Yeah,
Queen
rook
c6.
e6, lining up discoveries.
And now it's Lazaro's move to go. He has 2 minutes against 4 minutes. I think most likely than not, I think Lambasurin will take this home.
Oh my gosh. This is crazy.
Yeah, and that will mean that Slu will be 1 point up, and then Yasser will probably convert his position.
They'll tie that.
That will be 1-1.
UTRGV could win this event from behind.
Right, because
if Webster and Slu tie, and UTRGV gets 3 points.
Yeah, I guess.
Then they're the sole winner.
But so I think UTRGV most likely will get at most
2.5. No,
3.
Three?
3 if
They
Sean
could get
is able to draw. Then we'll get 3-1. If Sean loses, then they only get 2.5. And
so the city of St. Louis is rooting for Andre.
Right. So in that way, UTRGV doesn't get for the first place. Then let's see Robbie. How is Robbie doing? Yeah, I think most often than not, I also think Harsha should be able to convert this with the extra pawn. And it's not only an extra pawn, it's also like he has two pass pawns, the E and H pawn.
Not only quantity, but also quality.
Oh yeah, there you go. Throwing some bars right there, some phrases. And then Lazaro will probably lose, Just will probably win. And then it will be up to Emilio, I will say. Because with a victory of Harsha, that means only with a draw from Emilio, that should be enough to.
Okay, so
To win the
Webster is
match.
still the favorite right now.
It seems like it. Let's take a look at
So
how
Harsha's got to get his first win of the event,
correct.
and Emilio also has to.
I mean, both Harsha and Yasser, definitely. That will be 2-0, but then Dabasuri is probably winning. That's 2-1. And then if Emilio wins his game, sorry, there's no clue that they won the event.
Yes.
If he draws and Webster only wins by the minimum, then if UTRGV manages to win by 3-1 with a draw of Sean, then that will mean UTRGV and Bo Webster will tie for first with 7 points. Am I right?
That sounds right to me.
Right.
But I'm not entirely sure if UTRGV will get 3 full points.
Yeah, no,
They might only get 2.5.
I don't see it happening, honestly.
You think Sean's going down?
Most likely, yeah, based on the time situation, the position. He's pretty tied up here with his knight on f4, the queen on g3. Now that the rook has traded and there's no way for black to create counterplay due to him having to always worry about his pawns on e6 and g6. I think most likely white will win here. Knight c6, b4, a6. And now this move, queen g5. I think Andre needs to assess that this endgame is winning for white. I think he should be able to assess this after rook a1. He went rook a1 right away. And this creates the chance of d4.
Double question mark opportunity for Sean.
And Sean played e4 right
wow.
away.
And this is why the time control is crazy for both sides. It looks like Sean's really low on time, but both players are low on time.
It's what I'm telling you. Like in practice, like, okay, some people might say, okay, I go back with a knight on b8 and then I decide what to do. No, I mean, here Sean understands that he's lost if he plays normal moves. Even if he doesn't can calculate all the way to the end, he understands that he needs to somehow break through as soon as he gets a chance. That's why he played d4 right away.
So let's look at this. First thought, why can't we take on a6?
I would think because of queen b7 winning at tempi, and then there's some threats with queen b5 and taking on c3. Let's say rook a6, yeah, queen b7, there you go. And then let's say a normal move like rook a1. Black can just take on c3. And now that we have created all this counterplay, now the pawn e6 seems pretty irrelevant compared to before, When we had the control, there was no way for black to break through with d4. Then it was completely fine to trade queens and then take on e6. But now since we have this pawn c3, the king on f1 also plays a big role as it's on target for forks all the time. Then black has a lot of counterplay here. And with 5 minutes on the clock, Andre needs to get back his composure, understand that even though he missed this, he still has the upper hand, and just try to play as best as he can this time trouble. I think managing your emotions here is going to play a huge role, I will say.
I think UTRGV is going to get the full 3 points.
Based on this d4, you mean?
Yes, this one move that Sean just made tells me all I need.
Yeah, he took on d4. Now queen takes b4 will most likely appear on the board. Yeah, it's looking risky. It's still, both players are in time trouble. That's something to keep in mind of, that anything can happen. But
So
yeah, queen takes b4 on the board. I don't know if we have the camera of that game.
Not quite
Production,
that game. We
we
do
don't?
have
It's
Gleb
all good.
Duden's game front and center. We also see actually score sheets being signed. So maybe we do take a live look
So
at
Dan Basurin already won his game as we predicted. knight takes h4. He ended up giving back the piece, but yeah, it wasn't enough. Checkmate was soon to fall after all this sequence. Rook h1, king h1, king h2. With mate to fall.
Beautiful. Yeah, Batsurin, a great turnaround game there from him.
Good practical choice. That a4 followed by this transfer of the rook to a5 and h5. I thought it was. Let me show you on the board because I think it's pretty instructive. Here you go. a4. This was the key moment. Interesting pawn sacrifice. Knight takes a4, then knight a5. Basically, white has to give up the dark square bishop. And after bishop takes, rook takes. Now the rook is gonna transfer all the way to h5 after knight c3, rook h5, joining the attack. And even though the engine doesn't approve it, I think from a practical point of view was a really interesting choice, which ended up paying off after he was able to convert with the attack. After bishop takes h3, a move with a lot of courage, like having been down the clock by almost twice the amount of time, and then also knowing how each point matters so much, he went for it, and he ended up paying off. So yeah, that was Rim wins. That's one victory for Su. I would expect Yasser also to win, and then they will equal the match. It seems like most likely he will win, and then it's a matter if Robbie is trying to hold this position as hard as he can. As we pointed out, these 2 pawns on e5 and h5 are pass pawns. Still, the king on e3 will block the e pawn, and then as of right now, the bishop on f1 is blocking the h pawn. But I would think once they are too busy worrying about these pawns, black will be able to free his rook and maybe start taking the other pawns or start giving checks in order to promote his pawns. So seems like Harsha should be able to win here, but still, with this time scramble, nothing is set yet. And then Emilio will just keep pressuring as much as he can, but once again, also the time pressure doesn't allow him to spend more time calculating when can I play d5, because that's mainly Emilio's breakthrough here, playing d5 in the right moment. But with 50 seconds on the clock, it's pretty unlikely that he will be able to calculate everything all the way to the end. And at some point, he will either just have to contend with a draw, which is not a bad result if Harsha is able to win, right? And then they will win the event. But if Harsha is not able to, then Emilio will probably have to take a risk and go for it with d5 eventually. But I honestly think Emilio is just waiting to see how Harsha develops, and then he will decide if he wants to push it or not.
So I think with that being said, we probably should keep eyes on Robbie's game, because whether or not Robbie can hold is going to be really important. If Harsha wins this, I think that clutches Webster's championship title.
Yeah, basically, because I don't see Emilio ever losing that position. I'm pretty sure Tianqi is ready to shake hands as soon as Emilio says offer draw. So yeah, here Harsha play bishop g4.
Emilio very low on time though.
Yeah, but I mean the thing is that in that position that Emilio has right now, I don't ever see Tianqi winning this position. Like there's no way to push.
You don't think Emilio could blunder?
Only if he sees that Harsha is might not be able to convert. In that scenario, I see him over pushing.
What if he flags?
Nah, he won't flag. These sort of players rarely flag in these situations. I think as a rule, they even have a rule that they will never allow the clock to have 1 second. They will. I think as soon as it gets to 5 or 10, they play. It doesn't matter if you don't know if it's the best move or not. You just have to play. It's better to lose on the board than losing on the clock. That's always a must rule to follow. I would say. Seems like Harsha is converting after h4. Now the king is passive. This bishop on g4 is amazing. Honestly, it's covering d7, pushes h3, covers e6 also, stopping the rook from going to e6. This is a pretty a good technique by Harsha, I would say. Rook d5, and now he'll probably bring the king to f6, and then keep pushing h3, rook h8, h2, win the bishop, and I don't think there's any way for Robbie to try to get to rook against rook and bishop endgame, as the e pawn will still remain on the board, and that should make the win triple for Harsha, I would
Man,
think.
how clutch is this for Harsha, losing both games and now beating the top board from Slew, their captain, who went 2 for 2 yesterday, giving Robbie his first loss of the event.
Yeah, and not only that, as I mean, we mentioned at the beginning of the stream that both white boards from Slew seemed like they were able to put pressure, on Webster, and actually those two boards were the ones who ended up giving the victory to Webster, which is quite life turning, right? But that's how chess is. It's a constant fight, and in this case, it seems like Harsha should be able to win this game, and then Webster will take the title home. Let's take a look. Already doing one against Skitsko, as we predicted with the pass pawns, it was pretty hard to defend. And then Andre, after queen takes b4, play rook c1, the best move, covering the check on c4, attacking the knight. And then Sean played queen b2 with the tactics of rook takes c6, queen b5. Once again, this king on f1 always leads to tactics for white. Andre played rook d1. Sean played queen c2, and now queen e1. And yeah, I think it's still a fight. I think I will even say open for 3 results based on the time control and how the trend has been changing over the game. But yeah, I honestly don't see. Most likely, I think it will be either a victory of Andre or a draw. I don't think Sean will win, but you never know. Like a little bit ago, we were saying that should be easy conversion for Andre, and then suddenly Sean found this d4, right? Good call, like from a practical point of view, and now things are getting a little bit messy.
I think this is really important. Obviously, Rio Grande Valley has already won the match against Dallas, but they're going for more points so that they have a best chance of winning this event. Because obviously, we see Yasser Quesada Perez won his game, so Webster and Slew are back to tied 1-1, but it looks like Robbie is going to lose. That game is still having to be finished. And Emilio's game versus Tianki is also very important, as you said. So if somehow St. Louis can keep it to a draw, 3 points for Rio Grande Valley will bring them to a tie.
Right. It will all be up to Sean. Also, I will think that Emilio is aware of this chance of UTRGB tying for first. I don't know if maybe they discussed it with their coach, but maybe he might need to try to play for the win in case he sees that Sean might make a draw.
Yeah, I think I misspoke. So I think if UTRGV gets their 3 points, and if Webster wins only by 2.5 points,
correct,
then the two teams, UTRGV and Webster, will be in a 7-point draw, which then you would look at match victories, which I guess Webster would still win. So Webster had a win yesterday against Dallas. UTRGV only had 2 draws yesterday, and with only 1 win, a tie would give Webster a tiebreak advantage.
Right. So basically, all they need is for Harsha to win, and then Emilio will probably just not push, just keep the position, and then offer a draw.
So Sean has to play for a win
in order for their team to get a chance. Correct. And after that d4, he does have some chances, even though the engine says white's better. That's probably his best chance in the game so far. After
Sean might not know.
He's been coming out a lot and looking at the live boards in the library.
We have some information from our audience that Sean is keeping an eye on all the boards. He's aware of the whole situation. We have some intel right here. Thank you very much. I appreciate it for that. And yeah, it seems like now it's equal. Actually, queen c4, queen e2, knight e5, nice tactic. Basically, pawn takes, queen takes f4. So that means probably white needs to either trade queens and then take on e6. But I honestly don't see white losing this. I think it most likely will end up in a draw, depending on also how they play in time scramble, Knight takes e6.
Double exclam from Makove.
Double exclam. Queen takes e6 will probably appear on the board. And
Imagine Andre blunders and Sean clutches a win.
and that will mean that UTRGV wins the event. Is that it? No, no.
Depends on the last two boards in the Slew Webster match.
Right, if RGV gets to 3.5 and Webster gets to 2.5, then RGV.
Correct. If Webster wins by the minimum and Sean somehow manages to pull a win, which honestly I doubt based on the current position, they will win. But
So assuming all the players understand all of this, they're really going to play their games out in their entirety. You don't want your result to finish early because that changes implications for other players. So we
They
have
should.
2 games left between SLU and Webster, and we have only 1 game left between the 2 Texas schools. So 3 games remaining in the entire event. I don't know who's I guess Webster's still the favorite because Harsha is crushing Robbie. So maybe we keep our eyes on that one, unless you think something will happen in Tianki versus Emilio.
I think Tianki versus Mill is pointing to be a draw most likely after, even if Tianki manages to maneuver with the bishop to f6, then get the rook to d8. All Emilio needs to do is put the king on c4, the rook on d2, the other rook on d1, and there's nothing Tianki can do in that position, honestly. Like, it's pretty dry, taking into account the opposite color bishops. I think most likely this will be a draw. I think Emilio already understood that he doesn't need to push, taking into account the fact that Harsha will win. I think we will see pretty soon Robbie's resignation here. And that will mean Webster wins by 2.5. That will mean they ended up the tournament with 7 points, correct? And the only way for UTRGB is if
To get
Sean
7.5 points.
Sean draws the game, you know.
Sean has to go for a win
I mean, Sean. Oh no, yeah. Sorry, my
for
bad.
7.5.
Correct, because if Sean draws the game, then they lose.
Then they're only at set. They lose
by
on tiebreak.
by a tiebreak because Webster has more match points, and therefore Sean needs to win. That's his only chance. But honestly, I don't see him winning this position. I think
Unless
most-
Robbie can pull out some stalemate trick.
most likely
Robbie's going to play till he gets mated. I don't think he's resigning. This is also his last game as a collegiate player. So
correct.
an unfortunate note for him to end on, for sure. He definitely would love to have won with White, especially against hometown rival in Webster, as well as knowing that he had a perfect 2 out of 2 so far. But unfortunately, it's really hard to go 3 out of 3 in this sort of event, especially on board 1. Also, Harsha, I guess, kind of due for a point. He went over 2 yesterday, so he also made sure that he put forth his best effort today. And it's coming in very important for the Webster team.
Yeah, and we can see in Emilio's game, it's happening exactly what I told you. Black got to put all the pieces pointing to d4, but after White just defends d4 with the 2 rooks, there's nothing else that Black can do, and most likely they will just repeat moves and go for a draw here. And then, yeah, Sean will try to play for a win, but I think, objectively speaking, the only one who can play for the win here is White, and
Sean's very low on time.
yeah.
He's got to move. Less than 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Oh, E flag. No, I'm just kidding. No, there's also sometimes a little bit of a delay between the DGT boards and the clocks and showing up on our screen. But as we can see here, he made a move with 6 seconds left on his clock. So you get 30 seconds added every move. But I mean, it's almost a bullet game at this point. Both players less than a minute.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think the best chance that UTRGV had in that moment was for Jacob Foss to go for the interesting queen sacrifice with
Yeah, knight
some
g2
knight g2. I think that would have been
after king f2.
that would have been a interesting game, definitely. Taking into account the fact that no matter if they win 3-1, they need 3.5 at least to win the event. I think that would have been the right call, but the games are decided, and it seems like most likely Webster will be the champion based on the current situation.
Yeah. I think maybe we stick with Robbie's game. I think once Harsha wins, it's gonna determine a lot.
Let's see.
So how much longer can Robbie hold?
I think he should be resigning pretty soon, honestly. Rook c1 is coming. Probably White has to give up the bishop, and once he gives up the bishop, there's no real hope, as Black will still have one extra pass pawn, and there's no real chances to get any kind of rook against rook and bishop. So I think we should be seeing Robbie's resignation pretty soon. King f2, probably king f4, followed by rook c2, pushing the king back, and then bringing our own king all the way to e3 or g3. I think that should be enough to.
Can you start with rook c1?
You could also, yeah. I mean, there's many ways to win here. That's what I'm saying. Like, it should be a sort of trivial here already for Black, since he has so many ways to convert the advantage.
Well, you saw Robbie's former teammate Benjamin Bach pull out a stalemate trick against Magnus Carlsen.
I actually didn't.
No, you didn't see
when
that?
did that happen?
Does anyone in? I don't know if it was. It might have been World Rapid in New York.
Okay.
That's my guess.
It seems like Sean is gonna go for a draw after queen b1, queen e1. Yeah, it seems like this game will end up in a draw. That will mean that UTRGB will finish the event with 7 points, winning the last match by 3-1, which is a great result, honestly, to win this match in this style, but it's not enough to get the title home, as Webster will win the event by tie breaks, by having more match points, because they won 2 matches, and UTRGB only will win 1 after this round, basically.
Yeah, we have a question in the chat.
I don't know how clearly you remember all of yesterday, but it really seemed like UTRGV came out of yesterday feeling like both of their 2-2s were disappointments. They were missed opportunities. Does that sound right to y'all?
So our audience is asking what do we think about the last matches from UTRGB yesterday? Even though they both finished 2-2, it seems like maybe they had some better chances to take advantage of their positions and maybe win one of those matches. What do you think, Joe?
Well, I think if you look at St. Louis and you look at Webster, they're the number 1 and number 2 seeds here. So I think drawing against them is probably a good result practically. How they felt, I'm not sure. Maybe I could have asked Bartek when he was here. But I don't think they should be too disappointed, honestly, and they might end up getting 2nd place, which is higher than what they were expected if you just look at the seeding. Maybe a little disappointed, like Brian was saying, Jakub Fuss could have played on a little bit more, but it was a really tricky queen sacrifice kind of line.
Right.
And if you don't play well with your pieces uncoordinated against a queen, things can go south really quickly. So
yeah, and also, I mean, he doesn't know that one of the other teams might win the match. I mean, because in the case of Webster and Slut finishing with 2-2, UTRGB will have won the event. So it's always a lot of speculation. Things already passed. I mean, like, for example, we could have said that maybe Sean could have won against Lazaro in round 1 or 2, I think. But then at the same time, you also could have said that maybe their board 3 or 4 could have lost another half point. So yeah, I mean, it's just how the game is, I would say. There's some missed chances. It's also some luck sometimes, from saving some positions. But yeah, I think definitely nothing to. I think the UTRGB team needs to be proud about their performance in this event, even though they didn't get 1st place. And I think they're showing that they're doing a great work with their team, I would say, based on this result.
Yeah, I think also maybe the team isn't necessarily super disappointed, but as you pointed out, Sean maybe could be a player that might be a little harsher on himself. He's had 2 draws so far, looking at a 3rd draw, so not
At the
winning
same
any
time
games.
today, he could have scored 0, right? And
Yeah,
so
yeah. So at least he didn't lose. Uh, yeah, at least he still has another game. Also, like Gleb Duden, he ended up losing a game. I think Jakob also ended up losing a game. That's something that we talked to Ekin Osnier about, and part of their strategy going in was that they already determined which players would be playing which rounds. So it didn't necessarily impact the lineups based off those results, but maybe they could have had Ekin play instead of Jakob, and that could have changed things, but maybe Ekin also would have lost. So it depends. Your opponents are trying really hard, obviously, and we do have a result with Robbie ended up losing his final game of his college chess career, which is absolutely huge. So now Emilio can rest easy and maybe start offering some draws, but Tianki
yeah,
might not accept them.
yeah. Although it seems like Sean is trying to put pressure here. I think he's considering keep playing on. I mean, he definitely should if he can. We currently have this position on the board, equal material, but the probably the king on G1 is more exposed than the king on H6. So, for example, there's some ideas with either rook B8, rook E8. The queen is defending on G6. There's no clear way to attack the king on H6 right now. So, who knows? Who knows? Actually,
Sean might put the state of Texas on his back.
that'll be insane. That'll be insane. Yeah.
So Emilio has to keep playing too now
And
because Sean's still
he
playing.
did play rook B8. There you go.
So here we go. Sean from Canada showing up big for the state of Texas. He's trying to take down another Texas player, Andre McAvey, so that he can bring the title home.
Because, for example, I mean, White could stop the trail of checkmate by playing rook b6, but then after rook takes, queen e1, king h2, queen
You
takes
get a pawn.
c5, even though it is technically a draw, Black can keep playing for a while, and then also, psychologically speaking, Andre knew that he was winning most of the game, and now suddenly he has to defend a pawn down endgame, you know, which is, from a human point of view, a torture, basically. So he played rook, queen e2, and now Sean is thinking, but he cannot think for too long because he only has 1 minute, right? So seems like he still has some chances. That's yeah.
H4.
H4 seems like a move that could potentially put trouble. Yeah.
Put it in H, Sean.
So H4, let's say E6, H3, and if I play,
There's only one move.
it's only one move. Yeah, because I'm threatening rook D1 followed by takes, and queen G2. So rook D1 will be the only move, and then suddenly we have some ideas with rook B5, for example. E7 and then rook E5. Ah, what do you think of that, huh? And then rook D2, only move. What do you think of that? That's
Sean's breathing some life into the he's the last factor here.
Wow.
And Sean, we see he's at the board there. He's looking at Tianki versus Emilio's game. Sean knows what's up.
Yeah, he knows if he wins he's a man. He's a hero of the event.
And
Because-
Andre McAvey, maybe he's sitting in a hot seat. He's a little nervous. Obviously, like Dallas, they're mathematically eliminated, so they can't win.
Right, so
But-
that's another reason that I mean, Sean has more motivation than Andre, right? On that aspect, so that also plays a role in the game.
Imagine the controversy if Andre just resigned.
No, I mean he wouldn't just resign. Like
I know he wouldn't, but imagine.
I mean, imagine if Emilio just resigns, right? Or if Tanky just resigns. I don't know, but yeah.
Imagine how upset like Liam Lee would be, for example, if Andre just resigned.
I guess I don't know.
That would be. Anyways, obviously Andre wouldn't do that. They're all playing their best. They're playing their hardest. They all want to win, or hold their positions.
Rook B3 on the board.
No,
Honestly,
he didn't put in an H.
he was probably afraid of E6. I mean, it's also hard to calculate. He probably is okay with just going into this pawn up endgame. But honestly, I think H5 will have been a better chance to play for a win. As
You could
most
still
often than not, this endgame it's should be a draw. There's Andre goes for rook D1 instead, and now H4 is
H.
once again on the board. Now
Put it in
having
H.
the rook E3 idea. Yeah, I think if he plays H4, I think it's gonna be a psychological hit for for Andre here. We'll see.
I think the arbiter has given out another score sheet for them just in case.
Rookie 3 played.
Queen's got to
Do we have the game on camera right now?
We have the player. We don't see the board very well.
Increase your brightness. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, we see Tianki in the
So
background as well.
he went for Queen B2, defending the pawn, and
But
now
not defending the F
and now
pawn.
taking on F3. And I guess Andre's hope is that he will play E6 after Rook takes. Maybe he wants to play E6, I would think. But apparently, these checks on H8 might not be enough for a perpetual after just Rook E3.
Sean's
like-
cooking right now.
Sean is, he's trying hard right now.
And now we see Emilio's getting up from the board. Tianki's glancing over. Emilio.
Wow. I mean,
Emilio's got to look
must
at
be
this.
going through a lot of emotions because he probably thought, okay, I don't need to push. The game is decided, you know. And now suddenly he understands that if he draws and Sean wins, they lose the title, you know. And now
Oh my
he
God.
might be thinking to himself, why didn't I try to push before? And honestly, I think anyone would have done the same thing. Yeah, it's a draw already, you know.
Whoa.
Yeah, I mean there's no point in over pushing. Now it's all up to Sean this
So
game.
we've got a handshake. We've got the signing of the sheets.
Oh no, he didn't take on F3. He went for Rook E1.
Oh.
I don't.
No, it was Emilio and Tianki drew. So this is the final game of the event.
This makes no sense though. I mean, I would think that Sean is aware of the fact that if he draws, they don't get first. I mean, based on the tie breaks, why would he go for the draw?
Oh, he traded rooks?
Yeah, he traded rooks. I don't
He
understand that
didn't
choice.
take on F3?
Because he always has this option of going back to A3 and then Rook E1 and giving the perpetual, you know? Like there was really no risk for black here to take the pawn. I don't know what he saw. I mean, it's always easier also to comment when you're not there sitting, you know? Like the nerves are different, but yeah, I think that would have been a good chance for UTRGB to win the title after Rook takes F3. Now it just seems like a draw. Yeah, it seems like it will be a draw,
Oh.
and that will mean that Webster wins the event after these turnaround events. Crazy round. Yeah, there you go. It's a draw already. It's on camera.
Unbelievable. Sean
And-
didn't take on F3.
Yeah.
They agreed. He traded rooks. They agreed to a draw. All the games have concluded, and that leaves us with Webster University as the 2025 President's Cup champions.